Hello there everybody and welcome back to the Dark Souls 1 boss ranking video. The first 13 bosses are done and over with, and the bosses are only gonna get better and better from here on out. Let's get started with number 12. The first boss in the second half of this list, Iron Golem. This massive boss hits extremely hard and can easily throw you out of the arena if you aren't careful. Luckily, his attacks are pretty well telegraphed and can be dodged somewhat easily. Another bonus about this fight is that you can summon Black Iron Tarkus. Despite his laughably bad performance in my Let's Play, he's a contender for the best NPC summon in the series. The idea of a golem standing guard at the top of a trap-ridden fortress, acting as one final test before being allowed entry into the City of the Gods, is a really cool idea. And if you want to feel like a badass, you can knock the boss off the arena and end it early if you stagger him near the cliff and do enough damage. This is the first boss in the game that I consider to be really good, and I'm looking forward to the rest. Though that being said, 11 might be a little controversial. At number 11, we have the Capra Demon. Oh yeah, I'm not kidding. I'm putting him up this high. I'm going through my villain arc today. Most people look at this fight and say it's bullshit and unfair and poorly designed, and to a certain extent, I can agree. But this boss did teach me one of the most important lessons about Dark Souls that I still use to this day, and that is the art of crowd control and using the environment to your advantage. The stairs are really helpful in separating the dogs away from the demon, letting you take them out first so that you don't have to worry about them while getting attacked by the boss. Say what you will about this fight, but learning this lesson will help you enjoy some of the series' finest fights in the future, whether they be in this game or later games down the line. So I'm forever thankful for this fight. This boss also looks super intimidating, which is something demons should look like in my opinion, so I'm giving him bonus points in design thanks to that. Every time I hear people talk about this fight, it's always in an extremely negative light, so I'm really curious as to what people are going to say about my placement today. The first boss to crack the top 10 is Chaos Witch Quelaag. This boss fight gave me extreme emotional whiplash the first time I played this game. Blythem was absolutely brutal, and I was expecting an awful boss fight, only to get treated to a pretty good boss instead. She is surprisingly nimble for one so large, and can output extreme amounts of damage if you aren't careful. But the game does throw you a bone with the NPC summon before the boss fog if you take care of her invading you beforehand. The boss fight's music also adds a hint of sadness to the boss, which is unexpected, but the reason why Quelaag attacks you is for your humanity to help heal her sickly sister. The messed up thing is, you can find her sister after you kill Quelaag, and you can feed her humanities, which will improve her quality of life, but she'll think that it's her sister instead of you. She'll reward you with Chaos Pyromancies and the ability to skip pretty much all of Lost Izalith, so if you do decide to do that, then there's your reward. Quelaag is a good example of a boss who blends good mechanics with lore to create something pretty special, and that's why I put her at number 10. The first DLC boss of the game is in the top 10, so that should tell you something. The Sanctuary Guardian. After walking maybe 10 feet into the DLC, you already have to deal with this guy. He's much faster than most of the bosses in the base game, so you'll need to bring your A game to contend with him. He can poison you with his tail, which can be really annoying to deal with, but not as annoying to deal with as actually trying to cut the damn thing off. He also has a lightning orb attack that can catch you off guard with its speed, but once you know it's coming, it won't be too hard to dodge. And unlike most bosses in the game, He has an ability that knocks you off your feet so he can have some breathing room. The only reason I don't give him a 10 in overall fun is because of how much of the fight can be spent chasing the boss instead of actually fighting him. Yeah, go figure. When I go into a boss fight, I enjoy fighting him, not chasing him, so... Sorry, Sanctuary Guardian, I'm docking a couple points because of that. You're still in the top 10 though, so don't feel too bad. Solid boss fight. Great start to the DLC. At number 8, we have Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, the final boss of the main game. He hits really hard and fast, and can deplete your entire health bar very easily if you're wearing lighter armor or have low vitality. The biggest reason I don't give him a 10 in difficulty is because you can parry him, and if you choose to fight him that way, it trivializes the fight. I'm sure this won't be a problem for other awesome bosses in the future. Nope, not at all. If you do Solaire's questline correctly, you could summon him for this climactic fight. Gwyn is the one responsible for the events of all 3 games. In his attempt to extend the Age of Fire and prevent the Age of Dark from coming to pass, he sacrificed himself to the First Flame. But this only delayed the inevitable, and now someone new has to succeed Gwyn and extend the Age of Fire once more. This is the legend that Oscar mentioned at the beginning of the game. But in doing so, this eventually causes irreparable damage to the world, which eventually leads to the decayed world of Dark Souls 3. Gwyn's fear of the Age of Dark, leading him to kindle the First Flame himself, was the greatest mistake that anyone ever created. This eventually resulted in the literal end of the world. It makes you wonder what it would have looked like if Gwyn never interfered with the natural order of things, and let the Age of Fire end and the Age of Dark begin. We will never know, and it's quite the shame. And at number 7 we have the Bell Gargoyles, the first noob killer boss in this game. Also the first boss you can summon Best Buddy Solaire, so that's a bonus too. This boss feels so climactic despite only being the final boss of the first area. You fought through the entirety of the Undead Burg, finally making it to the Bell of Awakening after fighting through an entire castle of enemies, and also avoiding the Hellkite Drake at the bridge. And your reward is my second favorite boss fight in the first half of the game. He attacks much faster than the bosses that you fought before reaching him, so you have a brutal skill check on your hands, and if you're not careful, you can fall off the side of the arena to your death below. You can cut off his tail and get the Gargoyle Tail Axe, a weapon that boosts all of your resistances when you put it on any of your hands, so it's a good weapon to bring to Blighttown if you're struggling with that. And just when you think you're finally getting the hang of fighting this boss, a second one shows up, and your heart drops faster than your dead body after being roasted by the second gargoyle's fire the moment you notice it. This fight almost made me give up my first playthrough, but I powered on through and kept on fighting him until I eventually won. And I'm glad I did because I discovered one of my favorite game series of all time. So thank you, Gargoyles, for making victory against you feel so awesome that it continued to encourage me to play. At number 6, we have Great Wolf Sif. This boss earns the reward of most heart-shattering boss in the game, doubly so if you tackle the DLC first. Sif as a boss is far from the most difficult in the game, but I feel like that's done intentionally. Sif is protecting the grave of Artorias, her former master. In order to get the Lord's Soul from the Four Kings, you need the Covenant of Artorias, which he used to have in life. The most heart-wrenching part about this fight is when Sif is in critical health, she will start limping, unable to fully support her own weight anymore due to her own injuries, which, speaking as a former dog owner, feels like a stab in the damn heart. The worst part is the Covenant of Artorias is one of 2 rings in the game that get taken out of your inventory when you complete the game and go to New Game Plus. So the game forces you to go through this fight every playthrough. I won't lie, the first time I played the DLC and saw an option to summon Sif for the final boss, I had hope I could avoid the fight altogether after completing the DLC. But nope, Miyazaki just loves making you feel as hollow as the enemies you spend the entire game killing. So yeah, I think this boss earns its place at number 6. Not necessarily because it's super difficult or the greatest thing ever, but because it stabs you in the frickin' heart and makes you feel emotions you don't normally feel while playing these games. At number 5, we have Manus, the final boss of the DLC. Manus moves lightning fast and can hit you multiple times in just a few seconds. His health pool is also nothing to scoff at either. Manus has a second phase when you get him to around 50% health, and he will start showering you with dark magic, which in this game does both magic and physical damage, so watch out for that. If you get the silver pendant, you can briefly repel his magic and avoid it altogether, but if you time it wrong, you will pay dearly for your mishap. Manus was a primordial human that lost control of his humanity when he discovered his pendant was missing. You can find this pendant in Duke's archives, heavily implying that Seath the Scaleless or someone related to him took it. So thanks, asshole. Manus' out-of-control humanity is what led the Abyss to forming under Ulasil, thus giving Manus the name Father of the Abyss. It's a popular theory that Manus was the original human, and if that is true, that would mean we are trying to kill our original ancestor, which is really depressing to think about. Manus is easily the most difficult boss in the game, so make sure you have fully kindled the bonfire leading up to him in order to make your life a lot easier with 20 flasks. Despite the fact that we defeat Manus and halt the spread of the Abyss, his soul was so powerful that it was reborn in death and was split into 4 different fragments, which eventually found themselves in the land of Drang Lake, leading to the events of Dark Souls 2. Despite the fact that he's barely in the top 5, I have nothing but respect for this boss. His fight laid down the groundwork that helped many future bosses thrive, so thank you, Manus, for kicking my ass as many times as you have. At number 4, we have the Four Kings, haha. This is my pick for the best Lord Soul boss. In order to even fight this guy, you need the Covenant of Artorias, which will allow you to traverse the Abyss safely. When the first king spawns, he'll rush towards you and attack with his sword, which is tough but simple to dodge. He also has a few magic attacks, including an AoE meant to push you away. The worst attack is his grab. It'll deal lots of damage and even steal one of your humanities, so watch out for that. The thing that makes this fight so exhilarating for me is if you take too long to kill one of the kings, another will spawn and you'll have to contend with more than one at the same time. So it's a race against the clock. Luckily, when you kill one of the kings, you can continue attacking his still dying body for some extra damage until he despawns. So try that if you didn't know that before now. It makes this fight a lot easier. The Four Kings were once great and powerful men, recognized by Gwyn himself, and were granted with a fragment of his Lord's Soul. After Gwyn kindled the first flame, the Four Kings were approached by the Serpent Koth, who taught them the art of life drain. The gods themselves feared this nation of powerful humans and flooded the entire city with everyone in it in order to prevent an uprising. This is where the bosses start to be almost without flaw for me personally. And it still boggles my mind that 3 of the 4 Lord Soul bosses are terrible to just okay. Then there's this guy, which is my second favorite boss in the main game. Why does he stand out so much more than the other 3? I don't understand. It makes me wish the second half of this game was properly finished. Makes me wonder just how incredible the rest of these bosses could have been. What a shame. Taking the bronze medal is Kalameet, one of my favorite dragon fights in the series. He is a master of combat, and it shows in the way he fights. His charge attack, which is followed immediately by his breath attack, is a brutal combo that isn't easy to dodge. But going up close and personal isn't safe either, because he can either charge you, use a stomp attack that is really fast and can catch you off guard, or in the worst case scenario, use his grab attack, which doesn't damage your character, but instead it damages your real life eardrums and makes you take double damage until the effect wears off. Meaning most of the time, his attacks will one-shot you if you're not wearing heavy armor or got lots of vitality. As if that wasn't enough, he's a dragon, so that means you can cut off his tail. And that right there is the only reason why I didn't give him a 10 in overall fun. Trying to cut that damn tail off, especially by yourself, is a nightmare. Kalameet was so powerful that even at the height of Anor Londo's power, they couldn't bring this dragon down. And it makes sense that you can't even fight him properly until you have Goff shoot his wing and handicap him. Because if you try to fight him with both wings, he'll just fly and burn you to a crisp and never even land. Despite only having one wing when he fights you though, Kalameet still manages to be one of the hardest bosses in the game. And don't even get me started on his immaculate design. The black dragon with the red eye, just perfect. I'm an edgelord at heart, so this ticks all the right boxes for me. And to top it all off, he has my pick for the best boss theme in the game, so I think Kalameet has earned his spot at number 3. Taking the silver medal is Ornstein and Smough, the greatest gank fight in the series, bar none. There's a reason why so many games try to capture the lightning in a bottle moment that is this boss fight. Smough's hulking strength is perfectly countered by Ornstein's fast and nimble strikes. The pillars act as good crowd control that can help you get some breathing room to either attack the boss or heal. Executor Smough is a vicious knight that wanted to join the 4 Knights of Gwyn, the highest order of knights under Gwyn, but his brutish behavior shunned him from the knights. And Ornstein was the leader of the 4 Knights, and is a veteran that survived the war against the dragons, which is really impressive when you learn his armor is weak to fire. Man split a frickin' boulder in half with a spear. How could he not be the leader of this group of 4 knights? What really makes this fight stand out, however, is the second phase. Depending on who you take out first, it changes who you have to fight next. I only have footage of Ornstein's second phase, so you'll have to take my word for this next part. Smough crushes Ornstein and infuses his hammer with lightning, which in my opinion is the lamer of the 2 boss fights. He only gets lightning pine resin essentially. Ornstein, on the other hand, absorbs the remaining power from Smough's dead body and turns into a literal giant with some of Smough's old moves in conjunction with his own. This is easily the best fight in the main game, and this almost took the top spot, but the last boss just barely won out. But don't be mistaken, second place in a list of 26 bosses is still a damn good accomplishment. Honestly, these two interchange, so one day they'll probably be number 1 and vice versa. At number 1 on my list today is Knight Artorias. I'm sure very few people are surprised with this pick. Artorias uses a great sword with skill that is rarely seen in these games. Between his sliding attack, the double spin slash, the famous flip, or the flying eagle strike as me and my friends call it, there is no shortage of attacks to watch out for. Just make sure you stagger him when he tries to buff himself, or you'll be in for a rough time because it'll increase his damage resistance and how much damage he'll deal to you. And by that point, you're gonna be up crap creek without a paddle, especially if he does it more than once. Artorias was one of the 4 Knights of Gwyn and was tasked with stopping the Abyss, a task which he ultimately failed at, and with the last of his energy, he sacrificed his shield to save his companion Sif. You spend the entire game hearing stories about the legend of Artorias and the legend he left behind. And when you finally get to see him, it's in this sad state, with his armor being in shambles and his legs being almost completely gone thanks to the all-consuming nature of the Abyss, perfectly encapsulating why it has to be stopped. And to top it all off, his left arm, his dominant arm, is broken when you fight him, so he's forced to fight with his more awkward right arm. So one can only imagine how insanely skilled he was before the Abyss corrupted him, leaving him in this sad state. Now, after the events of this DLC, his legend will continue to live on as the one who stopped the Abyss, and eventually it leads to the creation of the Abyss Watchers in Dark Souls 3. So even to the end of the world, Artorias' legend does live on thanks to you and what you did for him. So, yeah, that's how the story of Artorias comes to an end, and it's probably for the best that it ended this way. And that's the end of Dark Souls 1 in its entirety. I've done my boss ranking video for this series, and it was my first ever attempt at it too, so I hope I did alright. But it's time to move on to greener pastures. Dark Souls 1 has provided much entertainment for me over the course of these last several months, but now it's time for my next big project. Starting tomorrow, I will be doing a Let's Play of Dark Souls 2, a very bipolar quality game that has extreme highs and bottom of the barrel lows, but I'll get more into that as I get further in the game. So if you enjoyed my boss ranking videos, then I hope to see you guys for my Let's Play tomorrow. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.